Pentathlon, a 5-part athletic contest that usually ended in hand-to-hand combat. Today's Olympics also test the skills of today's modern military man, and it's befitting that America's first modern great pentathlete was none other than the ultimate warrior, General George Patton. When one understands the concept of the modern pentathlon, it's easy to see why it appealed to old blood and guts. A military courier shoots his way through enemy lines. Out of ammunition, he draws his sword in face-to-face combat. Seizing the nearest horse, he gallops across the countryside. Abandoning his mount, he swims a river. He finishes his mission on foot, the complete soldier, turn-of-the-century style. Today, Colonel Jim Moore runs America's best modern pentathlon program.
The Department of Defense decided in 1955 that they would take responsibility for training athletes in modern pentathlon. They, of course, went to Department of Army, and they picked Fort Sam Houston, and Fort Sam Houston has been the home of the Modern Pentathlon Training Center since 1955. We have trained both civilian and military athletes here.
The Army provides the base for America's modern pentathlon program. For instance, Neil Glenesk joined the Army to pursue his modern pentathlon ambitions after first learning to compete on his high school swim team.
Pretty easy. If you feel like doing a little more...
Swimming is probably the sport that's the most important to have a good basis in when you begin pentathlon.
At 26, he hasn't lost his early winning form.
Everybody has their forte, one event that they feel very confident at. And when you get to that sport, you're just dying to show your stuff. When I get to the swimming pool, it's my time to show my strongest sport. We swim as much in a week as an Olympic caliber swimmer would swim in a day. A pentathlete has to divide his time between 5 sports. And that time might be better spent at the fencing hall or shooting or riding, training in one of your weaker events. We learn just how to jump, what we call hooking them and sending them. You hook them with the spur, point them at the fences, and hope to get around. When the Europeans see us coming over, they say, "Ah, here comes the cowboys." Some of the riders in Europe, they're so concerned with looking good and having so much finesse that the horse all of a sudden shuts down on them while they're concentrating on all that finesse. And in international competitions, we've always done very well in the riding. In the last 3 world championships, the United States has either placed first or second in the riding portion of pentathlon.
Three men from each country will compete for both individual and team honors. They not only have to battle foreign rivals, but also each other as well.
It's a mixed blessing that we train together and compete against one another. We call this each other the brothers. We know each other so well after years of training with one another, after getting up in the morning and riding and fencing and shooting and running and swimming together. When you get that close to somebody, you can't help but develop real, sincere friendships. So that's the good thing about it. The bad thing is that after you've developed these friendships, the way I'd put it is, in all walks of life, you try to build your best friend's dreams. Here at Pentathlon, you work to build your own dreams at the expense of your best friends.
Hey, this is pretty amazing. I get to eat corn on the cob with my fake teeth. These are the teeth that these are the teeth that old Twiggy knocked out of my mouth in the ride that time. Remember that ride?
Now?
Fencing is the only face-to-face event. Only one swordsman can score a touch. The other gets nothing.
I have to fence my brother in the Olympic trials coming up. And when I get out on strip, I'm going to have to take away a touch from him to give myself a touch. Real emotions, how easy they can come to a head when you have friends fighting it out for some very important touches in competition.
In his zeal, Glenask even built his own homemade training device.
I was told several years ago that perhaps I shouldn't go into pentathlon because I was too short. There's all sorts of sports that are thought of as being big men's sports, and this is one of them where a larger man or a taller man has an advantage, and the advantage is in fencing. A longer arm would get a touch before a shorter arm. But I've compensated for that by being very quick. I have to have better parries. I have to have better attacks, better defense. On an international level, I am the smallest pentathlete around. The Japanese are taller than I am.
In epee fencing, you can hit the person on the toe, on the kneecap, anywhere on the body. Anywhere is legal game. We fence every other competitor in the competition for one decisive touch. So if there's 61 competitors in the competition, you're going to have 60 bouts. If you win 70% of those bouts, then you get 1,000 points in pentathlon.
Their fencing coach is Sweden's Kaj Zekarnecki. He feels Glenask can compensate for his lack of technique with aggressiveness.
Neil is very talented and he has a very good fighting spirit. If he fences like he did last year, I believe that he's going to take the first individual gold medal in the Olympic Games the United States has ever had.
Fencing may be our Achilles heel at Moscow because most American modern pentathletes don't pick up a sword before their 20s, while Europeans begin as young as 5.
For your first string for record, Avo post.
The shooting event is probably the most difficult event for me. In riding, you can blame the horse. In fencing, you can say, well, the other guy's better than me. But in shooting, it's a mental sport. If you let yourself down, then it really does bother you quite a lot. I swam and ran all through high school and college. I started my event with the shot of a gun. I was conditioned to get excited when I heard a gun go off. Now all of a sudden I'm in an event where I have to suppress all that natural adrenaline flow built up inside me. I remember one shoot where a competition depended on having a good shoot, and I had everything going for me. I had shot 3 good strings. I knew at that point that if I fired one more string well, then I'd win the competition. With 2 shots left, I fired a bullet into the ground. I pulled up, I got a little tense. That one shot cost me 220 points, and of course the competition.
Target number 8, Neil Glenask. 5 hits. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 50. What do you think about the riding course?
Running is the last event of the 5th and final day of competition.
The run itself is 4,000 meters cross country over hill and dale. We may jump a stream or two or climb some small hills.
Yeah. I didn't watch him that closely.
You don't know what you're capable of, and at the same time, you don't know what the person who you're trying to beat is capable of. So what we have to do is run as efficiently as possible. The keys are pace and relaxation. There is no such thing as running on guts. You have to have something left at the end. It would be really nice if I went into the fifth event, the run, leading the competition, because then I know I'd win.
The modern pentathlon, a mulligan stew of difficult and obscure events requiring complete dedication. It's sometimes hard to know why guys like Neil Glenesk do it.
One thing I've learned and come to accept after years of doing pentathlon is that it is a very personal sport, because you're never going to earn $1 million or jump on the front of a cereal box doing pentathlon.
People always say you talk funny, but when you talk about Natural Light beer, you make sense. To all my fans and fannies, I thank you. Natural Light does have a taste all its own, because there's nothing artificial in this beer. Just the finest natural ingredients, including lots of barley malt, for a fuller taste and a less filling beer. Look at it.
Taste Natural Light. The difference is what we put in and don't put in.
This is no laboratory light beer. This is Natural Light.